Okay, so this is Joe and David having a conscious mind conversation, basically a little catch up and a little gossip and a little bit of giggling and some wisdom shared between friends. Fingers crossed, no pressure, David, go.
Hey, well, it's good to be back having a chat again, and I think we got really well after our chat the other day. I was really inspired just to keep talking about our health and our balance and you know how to stay balanced and healthy during these times. And I think that you know we talked a bit about physical ailments such as candida and what have you. I thought it might be good today to kind of talk a bit more about some of the back end stuff, if you will, about kind of the frequencies or the energies or the beliefs or whatever that can kind of create these ailments at the root, because obviously a lot of the time we're dealing with things as they're expressed, but you know, certain things perhaps wouldn't be expressed if we were living a little differently or reacting a little differently to our surroundings. And so so yeah, I thought it'd be good just to kind of expand on some of that and just see where we end up, if that sounds good.
Absolutely, but first, your session, was it your first quantum session that you had like that? And I love wanting to talk about the health stuff, but yeah. I have to ask, when you listen back to that session, what were your thoughts? And you know, you were so kind to share some of that publicly. Do you have any comments you want to share about your experience with your public session?
I think it was very interesting for me to do that. It was the first time I've done a quantum hypno session for sure. I mean, I've done hypnotherapy style modalities in the past. I've experienced holographic kinetics, which is an Aboriginal healing modality, and that's in a way there's similarities, but it is different, because that's more about looking at triggers in your timeline and clearing the attachment to any looping energies. And so, but this one was a bit more prophetic because it was about looking ahead, and obviously my experience was of looking at the Earth seemingly after an event had taken place and the planet was left seemingly like desolate, you know, brown scorched Earth, and so I guess what came up seemed to correlate with how I've been feeling within the depths of me anyway. You know, like I've said for a while, it seems to me as though we aren't just going to flip the switch and become 5D on this planet, that actually something else might be happening as well. And that kind of talked to that, because obviously in the session I was talking about how there were these structures in the sky, which I guess, you know, I could say were ships, and that there were people on these ships that were confused, anxious, nervous, looking for answers, and yeah, it seems to fit the theme of what a lot of people who are channeling or doing these kind of sessions are saying at the moment, and it certainly fits with what my feeling is in my conscious mind. You know, I think that in recent times, especially since I found your channel, I've found it a lot easier to kind of have conversations with my subconscious in general. Like I do spend a lot of time just speaking, and I think we shared last time, I found that very useful, just to really allow my mouth to make noises without judging anything that's going to come out of it, and through that a lot of truth just seems to flow. So even after the bit that you've shared, we obviously went on to do some more personal work in that session, and most of what came up for me wasn't a surprise, because a lot of it I've already taken into stillness anyway, and been given some of that information. So, but it was great just to kind of get some confirmation and just hear some of that truth in a more direct, impersonal way, you know. And I think that's the beauty of the subconscious. There's no fluff. It's just, it is what it is, and it's not about trying to trigger anyone. It's not about trying to trip anyone up. It's just, this is what's going on. Deal with it as you will. So yeah, so I found it very interesting. As I said, it seems to tie in nicely with some of the other messages that have been coming through your sessions. And I'm interested to continue and see where this goes, and potentially do another session myself as well.
Yeah, so it was really interesting because they were very specific in saying it was a new planet, but it was like they didn't want to, it was almost like they were sort of saying it's not new Earth, but it's a new planet, and that there was a different frequency vibration to it.
Yeah.
And I have to laugh and disclose this just for the giggles, but I know that it's not comfortable when people are listening about the end of the Earth. But I asked your subconscious, you know, why is it that you showed him a forward experience rather than, say, a past lifetime? How many other lifetimes has he had here on Earth? Thinking maybe it would make sense if you're a volunteer. And your subconscious was like, oh, 30 other lifetimes here. And I was like, oh, why didn't you show him any of those ones? Thinking, you know, that sounds like a smorgasbord of fun. And they said, oh, you know, not ready to go there yet. And I just sort of thought, God, but he's ready to go to old Earth. That's
yeah, it's weird because you know, I've been thinking a lot recently that I've felt like I'm kind of done looking backwards to go forwards. And you know, it's been a thing of mine where I'm like, you know, I don't feel like I need to go backwards anymore to figure out how to get on with my life, because I can always integrate or manage anything that comes up. But at the same time, I'm not, you know, I'm being a bit, well, I don't know what the word is, but I'm happy to go forward. So it's kind of the same thing. It's not being present. And one thing that came up in the personal part of the session was, you know, that I need to cultivate more presence, because I seem to poo-poo the past, but I'm quite happy to spend a lot of time in the future. So it's just that it's the polarity of that, you know, like where are you other than here? And I do recognize, and it came up again in the session, is that I do swim a lot in the sea of what's coming, and it takes up a lot of my time in contemplation about where we're going rather than where we currently are. And so, you know, that's a big learning for me that I'm always mindful of, and it's getting easier, but it's just something to keep in mind. And I think that it was funny that was the way it came out, because it was like, we're not interested in the past, we just want to talk about the future. So I don't know, yeah. But yeah, like I said, it was good to kind of get that, because it just reminds me to stay as present as I possibly can, because, you know, like you were saying, it's not that the end of the world is a funny thing or whatever. It's just that I think it's good to know about some of this stuff, but it's also important to remain present, so you can be as balanced as you are in the moment.
I did love the experience and having that journey with you, because you know, I can fully respect from your position looking down on the Earth, you know, like you didn't want to get closer because you knew it was going to be density there, but you could actually see it in a beautiful state, even though we sort of would assume it would be horrific and horrible. You actually took us, oh, I'm feeling emotional. It was, I mean, the information from sessions, you know, as much as we hope that none of it is true, it was comforting to know that there were people there with her.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you know, like again, we would say it can sound very doomsday a lot of the time, and very, you know, it's all going to shit kind of thing. But I feel that we can cultivate a lot of reverence for what's happened here, and where we've come from, and no matter what goes on the earth, if she ends up leaving her body, whatever, if we end up going somewhere else, that, you know, there's no, why should there be any feelings of disdain or anger or judgment towards what's happened? I mean, she's provided such a beautiful place for us to live, and you know, why let's not let's not forget to have reverence for that, because we're still here now, and even if we end up leaving soon, wow, what an amazing journey we've had.
Yeah, it was really beautiful, and it was really touching when in your session you sort of said you don't really want to leave her, but you sort of know that you're supposed to go on this other journey to go to a different destination. And so it was so calming and beautiful, and also so tragic and emotional at the same time. And we have to master our emotions and have that acceptance of why life cycles are occurring now. And I think we have this blessing to release our emotions now and process this now, so then we can be more of service. And whatever we're reacting to emotionally, it gives us opportunities to understand where there's growing for us still to be able to heal from that, overcome it, and move forward. And so I was really surprised. I had you never know with these sessions where the client's going to experience, whether it's other lifetimes from older dates and periods from history, or even future experiences on New Earth. And the sessions are incredible. And while you listen back to your session, it makes perfect sense that you went on that journey. There was no real clues you were going to have that. It just unfolded beautifully as it needed to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've obviously heard in some of your sessions a lot of people talking about their family and whether or not their family are going to go with them, where they're going, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like you said, a lot of this stuff can easily bring us into an emotional moment, but I guess it is so relevant that we have that, because we, as people that are hopefully going to be helping and being in service to those who are a bit unaware of what's going on in the future, then it's better that we've gone through that process ourselves, so we can help others manage it when they go through it. So what can I say? It's like you said, it's tragic and beautiful at the same time.
Yes, and if we do have those triggers, it's a great opportunity to overcome it. And I was made aware of someone telling people not to listen to these sessions because it would be too triggering for people. And so they said they would summarize it, and they would give someone, these people, a summary of the sessions, and they felt like they were of service because they were really worried that listening to these sessions would be just too triggering. And while I understand that people are trying to save people from being triggered, please respect the power and the purpose of being triggered, to be able to really learn that this is something that you still need to work through. And while not everyone needs to work through the content of these sessions, do not disrespect this work. They haven't asked me to summarize it in a written form. Yes, they did in terms of the manual, but that is for people who are in the old earth who can't probably have access to listening to these sessions. The reason why these sessions are raw and provided to people in the format it is because of the frequency and the energy that actually is contained within it. And while many people think it's just words of an entertainment story, the frequency and the integrity of the high dimensional beings and their information does activate people. And while you're trying to save everyone from not being triggered, you actually are saving them from potential growth and expansion and doing their inner work. So really check your egos here when you're trying to save people from not being triggered. And when you are trying to summarize this work, often I have seen people add fear into it, add their own lack of understanding and respect of this work. And while I know everyone's want to help each other to get this work and this information, it's everyone's individual responsibility to do their own inner work. And if you're trying to summarize these sessions to give them the gossip or the headlines, you're really taking away an opportunity for them to do their own personal growth. And I just wanted, this just seems to have come in now, so sorry for anyone. And I know they're trying to do their best to share this information however they can. But ultimately, if they're telling me share the information as it is, they would also be telling you share the information as it is. No one owns this information. No one is responsible for this information, but everyone can respect the information as it's delivered. And that is how the higher dimensional beings would like us to listen to them. And there is transcripts on YouTube. There is a whole lot of other ways to support you individually growing and learning from this information. There is no shortcuts.
Indeed. And, you know, I have to, one thing that just came to me as you were saying all that is that, you know, a lot of this stuff that's getting uploaded through your channel and other channels as well, to me, it's like modern day digital scripture, because it's people's stories that are alive in them. And like you said, the frequency and the energy that comes through these messages is there for people that are ready to receive it. And I can speak from experience and say that I have, since I found your channel, I've noticed changes in my biology because of the way that I've absorbed any truth, any truth that's come up in those sessions. It's changed the way the way my body is working. So I do recognize the power in that, and at the end of the day, it's up to each individual to absorb what resonates and what doesn't. I mean, there's plenty of things out there that we could say is much more triggering than this channel, you know. And I mean, there's a book that was written a long time ago that's been around quite a while that a lot of people refer to, and it's full of a lot of triggering information, but it's still out there, you know. And so it's up to the person to find their source of information and do with it what they will, because we also know that a lot of people listen to this kind of stuff and just think, oh, that's bullshit, I'm not interested. Some people listen to it, they get inspired. Some people listen and they get a bit into fear. And it's like, again, it's everyone's own way of processing, and that's their choice. It's up to them to do.
Absolutely. It's purposeful. And I think the sort of information that I've been getting from our high dimensional beings is a lot of people assume that their friends and family or their co-workers or even their like social media groups, they all kind of assume that they're not ready for it. And so they won't share it. And so they're like, oh, I don't want to have this conversation with someone that I think's really asleep. And the teams are sort of saying, this is why when you go within and take that time to really go within and ask them questions, you should be asking, is there anyone I do know that should be provided either the book or the sessions, you know, because our egos want to save people and not want to pass on this information because we are controlling our friends or whatever, because we, you know, think that they're not ready for it. And you're not responsible for this information. And if someone, when you're in that meditative state, in that relaxed state, and you've asked your teams, is there someone I should be sharing this information with? And if they give you a prompt of, you know, someone that you know, then it's your responsibility really to kind of share that on and say, hey, I don't know why I'm sharing you this video or this PDF, but, you know, I've been kind of prompted to by my guides. Remembering why we're here at this time. We're here to help the original souls who are having this earth experience. We are light workers who are here to support those, not hold back information that could be crucial for them to be able to grow. And if you're holding back sharing your truth or holding back sharing this information because for whatever reasons, you know, you're not of service. And I say that with much love. Remembering I don't get money from these sessions. I'm not trying to hustle anyone. you should be able to hear the integrity of these sessions and this information and understand why it's crucial to be able to help activate people at this time. You're not responsible for this information. Therefore, if you share it and people react to you, then you just say, oh, my bad, like, I'm sorry. It's not, you have to try, you have to plant those seeds just in case this is a time for them that they are open to it. And holding back and not sharing is not caring. And I understand it's really hard, but obviously I'm not saying, spam everyone that you know on your email list, but there will be people that you probably haven't considered that your intuition and your team are wanting you to reach out to for whatever reasons. So, this is time. Those light workers who have not been of service and have not been able to stand up to their roles and be able to empower themselves, they're having walkouts. Their souls are leaving and they're having higher dimensional versions of self come into their bodies to try and do a better job. And I know that it sounds judgmental saying better job, but if you're part of the problem and not part of the solution, what do your farmer, what do you think your collective is going to be able to do with you? We must be able to support these original human beings, whatever we want to call them, and remember our role and mission. And for those people who are still thinking that they should just sit there and, try not to be triggered, that is not just what you're supposed to be doing, my friends. And I say this with so much love.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a lot going on, and the pages like this are invaluable for some people. And as you said, it's not about just bombarding everybody. If you take it into some quietude and just listen for a while, you'll get given guidance on who to share it with. And it's up to that person to take it seriously or take it not seriously. It's up to them. But what's wrong with just saying, hey, I thought you might like this, have a listen. And if they don't like it, they don't like it.
Or it could be, oh my gosh, listen to this, I really hope it's not true. That's a very valid statement. It's a very valid statement. But then it's not out, then we're not owning it. We send jokes and memes and silly things all the time to our friends, and we don't feel that we're responsible for the message and the information. So why with this? And I think people are worried about how to deliver this or share this because they know the content is so big. It's a lot. And this may be a sign that you're still processing the information yourself, and therefore maybe you actually need more support. You actually may need someone to be able to start listening along with you, to be able to share the worries and the thoughts and the feelings and the processes and the journey, because a lot of people are trying to be stoic and do it all by themselves. And sometimes when we're just doing things by ourselves, it is a very harder journey.
Yeah. And on that, I have a friend who also listens to your channel, and she introduced me to it, and we've been speaking quite regularly recently, and just sharing our takings from some of the uploads, and just it's good to have that kind of that soul friend who you can just share with and know that nothing you say is going to sound too nuts. It's just, look, these are some stuff that's coming up for me, and I want to just see what you think about it, and that's where you're really inviting someone in who can be can offer you actual counsel rather than just advice or opinion, because there's a difference there. Like if you're looking for someone's opinion, you're always going to get everything from their perspective, whereas if you're looking for someone for counsel, then they're going to give you a much higher perspective and a much more balanced response to anything that you're going through. So I think it's important, if you do need support, to lean on people that are not just going to come at you with their opinion, but are actually going to support you where you are at.
Absolutely. Well, a nice wave and hello to your friend who recommended you to this information, because ultimately what she has done is shared something that's probably quite overwhelming for her to some degree, and she's loved you and trusted you enough to be able to hear it. And look how much you've grown personally, David. Like, you basically owe her a fantastic meal and a spa day. And but you know, like, that is so wonderful. If she was too scared of how you would judge her or judge this information, you know, you would have still been back where you were. And you know, you still were fabulous, but you can see your profound growth even just in the small little window of opportunity. And we don't know how long we have. And when your friends look back, knowing that you had this information and you held it back because you thought they were going to judge you. Well, haven't we already told our friends crazy stuff already? Haven't we already been a doofus to our friends anyway? Our friends should love us and support us, even if we're going through something. And maybe those people who are still struggling with this information, maybe it's time you do find a friend, you know, because it can be just, it doesn't even need to be someone that's actually in your physical life. There are so many really good support groups on social media or those kind of formats where people should be open and honest sharing. And this is, communities are supposed to have been formed. And, you know, it is comfortable knowing that everyone is having these big, strong senses that something big is happening. We all know how to master our emotions when we choose to feel those feelings or not. We also understand that when people haven't done their inner work, they're so self-absorbed, they're so self-obsessed, and they're not really able to think beyond themselves. And, you know, that is okay, because that is their journey. But for those light workers and for those spiritual people who are still holding on to their inner work, and we've heard this time and time and time again, you can see and you can understand the significance and the time pressure we're under.
Yeah, and that, you know, on that, I think one way that we could very quickly change a lot of our responses to what's going on the planet is because not most of us, but many of us are. We look at the world and we look at situations that arrive in our personal and collective experience, and we say, and we look at it from the lens of how can this serve me, and is it serving me? But really, if we change that narrative to how can I serve this, then we would make massive progress, not only for the collective, but for our own healing journey as well. Because I think that you know, it's very easy to look at the world and see what's going on and just think, how is this affecting me? But you know, that dynamic has obviously not been working. So perhaps it's time to start thinking, how can I serve this? If I want to see love and compassion and all these beautiful things that we talk about in action, then don't I have to put that out there as well, rather than just waiting for it to come to me? You know, and I think a lot of people that suffer depressions and things like that would make amazing progress if they could really start looking at how they can contribute versus how they can receive. Yeah.
Oh, the depression. I think I have a take on depression and what it really is. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we can do. Yeah. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Okay. I believe from my experiences in sessions that when people are suffering from or feeling the effects of being depressurized, depressed, is because they are such high dimensional beings naturally that the density and the stress and the emotions of the collective and their environment of experiences of being very confused why things aren't truly as they seem or should be. We're talking about really intuitive people here. We're talking about really high vibrational gifts to humanity that are being swollen up and swallowed up from dense energy that makes them feel like they're the problem, that makes them feel like they're the outcasts. and that makes them feel like they are less than. And so they don't understand that their natural state is pure joy and fantastic, and they come here on earth and it starts compiling and compounding on them, and it really is misunderstood what's happening to them, because it's really just other people's energies. They're empathic, so they're absorbing all the crap around them, and they think it's theirs. They think they're these sad sacks that just can't focus and function. And so it then just becomes this really negative cycle of really horrible self-talk, and this feeling of just, there's so much going on, but really it's energy. And some people are blaming 5G technology for that feeling of feeling depressed and overwhelmed with just too much, and all of those side effects. And so when we ask in sessions, what's going on here? Why were they depressed? Usually a change in their lives have happened. They've either changed a location, or they've changed a job, or they've changed a school, or there is a big change. And so their energy, so these big light workers work so hard to transmute all this dense energy at their schools, at their homes. When they have a location change or a big event change, they have to restart again with the clearing. But it's like sitting down to a really huge dense meal, and they have been unbalanced, and they have processed all of the energy work that they're doing, and then this big change is a lot to process, and then their mindset start worrying that there's something wrong with them, versus realizing they've just got heaps of energy work to release and transmute and to ground out, because it doesn't serve them. But when our friends and family see us responding like that, then, you know, we're all trained to, you know, with much love, label the crap out of each other, and we also label the crap out of ourselves. And so therefore you have got into a state where you've gone somewhere to a doctor, and then they have labeled you as being suffering from depression, and they try to make it sound like it's just a chemical reaction or something else. So they will, with love, give you medicines to make you feel much better. Now, those beta blockers do interesting things to high vibrational beings, and I have to say, it is not truly as many deserve to have. Yes, it numbs you, processes you to be able to be a bit more balanced, but it doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't identify even with the root issue. And you then collect labels of yourself, judgment from your friends and family, as much as they say that they don't try to be. And then you're stuck on these medications that are highly addictive and have other side effects to the body. And every time I ask in sessions, the subconscious most times say they need to get off them as fast as possible, because what they're doing is it's not good. And so then we explore that more with each individual person. In the rare cases that the subconscious has said no, they need to stay on those antidepressants, it's because they've been on them for so long that they do need to wean themselves off it. And that there would be a physical, really bad reaction to the client, but they say that they will support them through it. And in some extreme cases, the subconscious has said, no, keep them on the antidepressants, because the person still has such low self-worth that the mindset will still keep them in that depressed state. And so therefore there's so much layers to it. And obviously this is just my experience from sessions. So, I can only speak for that, but it has made my clients realize that what they were really struggling with was with their light work, with their helping humanity. And they just got stuck. It actually was not what they were thinking at all. And it's always a surprise for them when we explore that in sessions.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely feel a lot of what you were saying there, and if I was to just chime in with my own view, my own experiences on it too, which I do think marry up. It seems to me that it often comes from a feeling of disconnection from tribe or any tribal culture issue. So if you, for example, have difficulty integrating the beliefs of your family with your own and things like that, and also people who are, I guess a lot of people seem to have had some kind of disconnect in their childhood, not necessarily abuse, but maybe where they haven't felt that they were really fully accepted as a human being in the human form. It's like, you know, there are certain things that are getting thrown out of the because obviously religion is struggling a lot at the moment, and some of the traditions in religion, such as baptism and confirmation and all those things, are potentially going to go away. But I think some of these rituals are required for soul grounding. So, you know, like some kind of ceremony to welcome a soul into a human form, I think, is required to bring grounding and enable a person to really grow into their human body. And if that's lacking in their early life, then it can potentially lead to a bit of despondence later on, because they don't really know where they fit in, because they weren't really, you know, their life has not necessarily been welcomed in the way that perhaps it needed to be, and they're struggling with tribal relationships, and so there is this self-esteem issue that kind of comes from that, and it creates this need to only get self-esteem from the outside world. So they look for recognition from family or friendships or relationships or society, and because they don't receive the validation in the way that they expect it, it can be difficult for them, because it leaves them feeling like they aren't accepted here, you know. And so that comes back to what I was saying before about this idea then that the world needs to behave in a way towards me for me to feel valid, versus I'm valid and I'll respond to the world from that place. So I think it kind of blocks that building of self-esteem, which, you know, the self-esteem, the reason it's called self-esteem is because you have to cultivate it for yourself. But if you're always looking for the outside world to give you self-esteem, it's always going to be a temporary little sugar fix, you know. And I think this is why sometimes people with depression can have those very high fluctuating moods, because in a moment where you feel that you're being recognized and you're being celebrated, it's very nice. But in the moments where you're not getting that constantly, but you start to feel again that you're missing something. So to me, a lot of it comes down to the way we feel that we connect to our tribe and to our culture, and whether or not we feel that we are being seen. And if not, potentially that creates that imbalance. And so I think we, you know, we're beings of nature, and nature operates under the law of balance. And so everything that's going on with us is always an opportunity for us to assess where the balance is. And I think with depression, what's really going on is that the brain, or that part of the body, is going through a process of having a reboot, and it's slowly coming down to the point where it's gonna have a spark and then go in the other direction, and things are going to start to balance out. But I guess, as you were saying, sometimes we introduce medications which can block nature's process and leave people kind of in this you know middle place where they can't really feel any emotion. It's just a kind of haze, you know. So I'm not saying that everyone, I'm not saying people shouldn't take medications, but I think sometimes what's really going on, and it talks a bit to what you were saying, is that people are experiencing more of a spiritual crisis than a depression, you know. And it's about finding someone who can actually help you through that, rather than just taking medication all the time.
Is it though a brain reboot, or is it a transmuting energy reboot that's a different caliber than what we're used to, especially if it is the change of, say, a change of a relationship or a location or a job or a responsibility?
Well, it's some kind of upgrade. It's some kind of rebalancing, and whether that's the brain being upgraded or whether it's the energetic anatomy being upgraded, it's basically nature saying you can't function at this frequency, so something's got to change. You know, it's like we are again, the law of balance will come in and take over if you don't do it yourself, and so you're gonna experience some kind of shift, which is gonna take you to a place where you can heal, because you have to heal. You can't not heal. It's just how long do you want to block before the universe comes in and says, well, I'm just going to do it for you then, because you're not doing it, you know. So
it's such a hard one to understand when there's not that many people saying, oh, you're just an energy worker and you're just transmuting all the dense community that you live in or your workplace or whatever. So hopefully people have mastered themselves, or that their energy work. I know a lot of people rebalance themselves when they sleep. They replenish the energy that they are working diligently through during the day. There's so much going on, and when we don't really understand what our roles being a light worker is, or whatever other name you want to call, volunteers or people that are helping these original humans to evolve and have their best lives experience. Remembering, I mean, we didn't explore, David, your origins, who your SC really is in terms of what collective they're attached to, and it doesn't really even matter. But it was really interesting to say that you've had 30 life experiences here. So they did sort of hint that they were pretty hard ones to have, because you were playing the role for a lot of people to be getting out their frustrations, or it sounded like you didn't have very many fun lifetimes as people being horrible to you.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a bit of work with various modalities in my life, and a few of them, especially the ones that are looking more astrologically and things like that, have revealed that the fates in previous lifetimes have been centered a lot around a lot of mistreatment sexually and all that kind of stuff, and I, you know, I'm not saying that for any kind of woe is me style. I'm just saying what it is, and I have to look at it and think, well, great, because it's like this lifetime. My soul was like, well, look, come on now, enough of this, I'm not good enough energy, because we know that all that does is invites in someone who's going to show that to you, what that looks like. And so this lifetime for me, I feel it was really about, come on now, we've got to change this. We can't keep doing this one the same. And it's like that, like I was just talking about, you know, and we're always going to be at some point. One thing that you can be so blessed about in your journey is knowing that if you can't not heal. Healing is a law, and you have to get there. And if you stagnate, if you don't make the movements, you will be forced into it eventually. So you might as well choose the more comfortable route if you want to, because it's. I mean, again, I don't know all the answers to the universe. I'm not trying to claim that, but it seems to me that the longer you ignore your work, the work that you need to do on yourself, the louder the lessons get. So it's up to you to say, well, okay, it's up to me now. I've got to start. Otherwise, the next time the universe might give me a bit of a harder knock. I don't know.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. In terms of for humanity, the original humans, that wanting to awaken to themselves, to be able to really cleanse and clear their trauma from all their collective lifetimes. What does seem very strong in many sessions privately and publicly is that humanity is going to be triggered on purpose to help them release that trauma and be able to support each other while they all go through it together. And this sounds like the opposite of what should be happening. But as we have heard from many collectives now, they're running out of options because we are on a time sensitive matter. I don't like to use the word time properly, but I'm sorry, I don't like to use the word time for that, because we'll really, humanity is trying to wake up as fast as possible. That is what all the focus is here. We're trying to help assist those original humans, but we're also aware that the planet is going through a very, very, very big change. And she has been for quite a long time. People just don't want to acknowledge that. They don't want to look at the changes that she is trying to show us and give us many warnings. We are completely reliant on social media or other news to let us know what is happening to our communities. So that no one's been given this big information about, well, people have been. But this is the hardest thing. When you share the bigger truths and the information that we're getting from all these multitude of sessions, you tell people this, they don't want to hear the truth yet. They're still resisting it, and that's fine. That is their journey. But people need to hear the truth, and sometimes the truth is horrible to hear. Sometimes the truth is really sad.
Yeah, and I hear a lot of people, talking about law of attraction and just bringing in all the good things that you want, and that's great. But it's important to know that the law of attraction only works within the circumstances of your individual fate. And so you might have a contract to have a particular illness, for example, and you can use law of attraction if you like, but if you are contracted to have an illness, that you won't be able to wish that away because your soul is wanting to have an experience. And so I think with that one, because I know stories of people that have used that and got into a lot of wealth and things like that. But it's interesting that we always use that law when we want to try and get a bigger house or a car or whatever. And it's like, for me, I think when we're looking at something like the law of attraction or correspondence as a law, that if we find ourselves in a difficult situation, instead of praying to get out of that situation or asking to get out of that situation, can we instead ask for the courage and the resilience and the strength to actually be with that, versus trying to get it to leave us? Because it's these situations that arise, as you say, they come up to teach us something, and there's always a lesson if we look for it. And so rather than saying, oh, I just want the world to change, how can I actually accept what is, and to have the courage and resilience and strength to move through this part of my life, because, for example, if someone's praying for prosperity, how do you define prosperity? Because from the ego's perspective, it might be loads of money, a big car, a big house, and all this kind of stuff. But if you look at prosperity from the soul's perspective, it's a completely different view. Prosperity will be driven by what your conscience knows to be true versus what your ego knows to be true. So it's about what level are you actually using these ideas and these laws to? How are you working with them? Are you working with your ego, or are you working with your soul, which is always going to direct you to doing the most compassionate, kind, loving thing that you can possibly do? And we, as part of that understanding, thoughts always precede form. So whatever you're thinking about will turn into form eventually. So let's be mindful about the kind of energy that we're putting out into the atmosphere, because we want to stand on our pedestal a lot of time and shout and scream about some of the people that are doing all these things on earth. But any negativity that you produce in your system goes out into the atmosphere, and it's like a psychic free radical that just exists there, and it creates stuff. Things get created by that, and we've got to start looking at that a bit more consciously, about how our energy really works in the collective. Because when you put out negativity through judgments and blame and all these kind of things, don't think that energy doesn't become something, because it absolutely does. So we create the darkness that we experience on the planet, and we need to own up to that. We are the planet. We are, and she is a bigger version of us, and what she's expressing is a representation of what's expressed within. So I think that it would be helpful for some people to really start to understand how much power they actually have in affecting change on the collective scale, because we all say, oh, it's just me, I can't do anything, I'm not powerful enough, but we are. And that's the journey of this time, is about remembering how powerful we actually are, and how much power we have in our conscious mind to create. So what do we want to create? Do we want to create love, or do we want to create hate? It's up to us.
And this is where people get confused, because they're like, oh, God damn, shut up about the end of the world. You're creating that, you crazy bitch. Like they are thinking that because we're talking about this information, that then somehow, we're going to, create that from just this conversations and this, there's people accepting this information. That we don't, that's beyond our means. We are not controlled. It's not possible for us to manifest the exit point for Gaia. Like, it's just not, just think about it for a second. Yes, manifest amazing things for you, like wisdom and serenity and humbleness, and to be service of self and others. When you're trying to diligently create manifestations of financial abundance over everything else, then you've got a long journey to go in your inner work. I say that with much love. And I think that's what most people try to do with manifestation, isn't it? The first thing is, oh, let's make money. And then they focus on money. It doesn't work. So the law of manifestation's broken for me. It doesn't work. And the subconscious is like, well, you would be horrendously horrible if you got lots of your money that you're wanting to manifest in your life, because you're not responsible for it. And we distract ourselves and we get so more distracted into 3D. A lot of clients want to know, why have I struggled financially? Subconscious, like, we just make ends meet. Like, what is happening here? What, are we unlucky? Do we have a vow from other lifetimes that is impacting us this lifetime? Because that can happen. Vows of honor and obey and chastity and a whole lot of other ones can be merged into this lifetime, because the subconscious, you're still learning from it. Anyway, sorry, totally off track. So money is not the solution here, and never has been the solution here. And so a lot of light workers have really struggled to understand, well, I'm a nice person, I speak spiritual words, and I do generally kind of care for humanity the best I can. If they're not like on my porch and bothering me, I don't mind them that much. But why have I not got rich from my careers? And then, the subconscious will say, well, money actually, a lot of people think that money will complete them. And then you get to the maturity of realizing money is meaningless. And it is really about connection of self to your environment and friends and family. So anyway, it's very interesting why people are motivated to want the things that they want. And you can tell a lot about someone when you ask them what questions they would like in one of these sessions, with much love, because you can see what's the most important thing for them at this current time.
Yeah, it's a pandemic of self-esteem is where we're going at the moment, and I think that's really what we're being shown. Like this, the pandemic that we're really experiencing right now is a lack of self-esteem, because it's that creates this idea that the outside world is going to be the thing that empowers you and lifts you up. But as I said earlier, self-esteem is something that you can only cultivate within yourself. So whenever you think that you've got to grab at the world to fill you, you're always going to end up coming to a stage where you feel unfulfilled, because the minute those external stimuli stop, where are you going to be? how are you gonna cultivate that same feeling if you haven't learned how to do it within already? And it's like I was saying then, you know, people ask for money, but what's your definition of prosperity? Because can't you be prosperous and also be impoverished at the same time, you know? And it also comes into the meaning of humility. I think a lot of people don't like the word humility because the dictionary definition of humble is to be poor. And so it gives this idea that if you see yourself as the same as everybody else, which is what humility really teaches us, that you will somehow lose out, that you'll be poor, that you'll miss out, you know. And so this, again, we're living our life so focused on what we can get to survive, because we aren't connected to the heart fully, you know. The heart is not being engaged as much as it probably could be at this time. And everything that we are doing in our life is still very much driven by our need to survive, you know. And the ego is the one that controls the narrative of the need to survive. So it's always going to say them versus me, or bad versus good, and it's always going to look at things through the polarity, through the lens of polarity. And you know, polarity is something that exists as an engine of creation, but we exist behind polarity. So if we can, that's the true humility, is understanding that this is me and I am that, and we are us, and we are all, you know, we're all one thing. So whatever we're screaming about, what we don't like in the outside world, is just a reflection of what we don't like about ourselves. Always, in fact, you know, your perceptions are just reflections for you to experience, so you can form an awareness of how you really respond to the outside world. You know, everything that you think or judge about your exterior is simply a reflection of what's going on within. So it's that to me is really where we need to go at this stage, is actually recognizing ourselves as equal. And we do that through humility, and knowing that if we want to change the world, if we want a better life, if we want to heal, we have to be prepared to put the groundwork in ourselves, because we can't just shout at everybody else to calm down and sort it all out if we're not willing to do it, you know. So it's, yeah. it's unity is something that a lot of people are screaming for at the moment, but they're screaming for it through the voice of the ego, which controls the idea of separatism. So there's a massive paradox in that. You know, how can you ask for unity by judging? Because unity says that everything is one, and all the people that are doing these seemingly nasty things on the earth right now are actually just serving a purpose that takes us to a higher view, a higher perspective, a higher vibration anyway. So do we want to fight against them, or do we want to cultivate our own practice of unity within?
But people don't realize that fighting against them is actually still part of the problem and not the solution. So they sort of have that knee-jerk reaction to respond and react that way, and they get lost because they feel like doing nothing, and not protesting. When you were talking before about your friend protesting, different friend, it reminded me of a part of the book of what Dolores Cannon wrote about 3 ways of volunteers in the new earth. And I don't know why it popped into my head, but I'm going to share it. So that book is really good. It was lots of her sessions that she had collected for quite a few years prior to 2011, when that book was published. And I remembered one of the sessions they were saying, when things are about to shift, do not participate in the protests. The protests are going to get really angry. People are going to be really chaotic, and it's going to be very full on. But they told that client, not saying for everyone listening, but they told that client, if I can remember the session, the information in the book, that it was too dangerous for her to participate in the protests, even though she'd be really tempted to go out and speak her voice and be counted for and have a movement. The reality is it was just too dangerous for her. Now, what we've heard in recent sessions is that when the disclosures happen and people are very shocked, They're going to be very angry. They need to feel very angry. We want them to release that anger. We want them to feel it and to release it and to come together. And we also have heard that many karmic experiences will be completed in that anger, unfortunately, but fortunately for them, because they've come here to have those life experiences, to have their contracts experienced and to be fulfilled. And if they're still needing to hurt others to complete their cycles, I have to accept it. I have to respect everyone's life contracts. I may not understand the purposes of it. I will not be able to understand the other side of the other lifetime where this event happened, which was now needing to be played out in this lifetime. I can't judge that, but I can't endorse it either. In terms of violence, it is uncomfortable for me to even have to have this higher perspective of accepting that everyone's got their teams, forcing them with much love to use their free will to be able to have the most experiences that they need, the variety of experiences that they need to be able to master the third dimension.
And it's like you said, how do we know? Like, I think that some of these processes and things are obviously pivotal moments for a lot of people. But I like, just on what you were saying about the Dolores book, the last week I got a bit of a really strong impression came through to me, and about one of my friends who does regularly attend protests, and something just said to me, just ring her and tell her not to bother going to this one, because there was obviously a few happening this weekend. And I just said to her, look, I don't know why, but I've just been told to tell you, don't go to this anymore, because then they're only going to get more violent. And I don't think it's the safest place for you to be. I said, but you do what you got to do. I'm not judging you. I'm just letting you know what came in. And she was like, oh, thank you. You're right. I'm not going to do it anymore. And then in Melbourne, this weekend, I think it did get pretty violent. So what I noticed about this whole this process is that the rebel in us, we all have an archetypal rebellious journey at some point. I mean, it's part of growing up that you have to rebel against what you're told is true by society. And so the rebel is definitely a journey that we'll all take. But it's a 3-step process. It's not just rebelling and saying, I don't want this, you're evil, you're this, you're that. You have to, once you've revolted, you have to involute next to actually sit with, what do I want? What are my values? What are my beliefs? What do I want to see happen in this world? How could I do things better? And I think a lot of people don't get to that second stage of involution. They're just so concerned with shouting about what they don't want that they forget to cultivate what they do. And so if we could actually take ourselves into that inward part of it, so we've expressed outwardly what we don't want, now we can retract within and figure out what we do. And then we come back out again with our evolutionary process. We evolve it to where we're going next. And so I think that 3-step process is missing in a lot of what we're seeing at the moment, because a lot of people are screaming for the governments to be taken down and all that. But the truth is, if we had no government tomorrow, a lot of people would not survive, because they don't have the skills to live on their own without some kind of governance at this stage. And I'm not saying that in the future we wouldn't be able to, but right now, a lot of people still need governance to be able to live. So it's how do we want the world to look? How can we create a better world rather than just screaming about what we don't want? Because if we are really honest, what we're seeing on the global stage is just a symptom of the vibrations that we all carry within. Like I said, it's micro, macro. We've all got a micro Earth, and what's being expressed on the macro is just a version of that, And the things that are happening on the Earth are just a symptom of a much bigger cosmic shift that has got nothing to do with us. So, do we want to? Because I know there's a lot of people talking about everything, all the structures getting taken down, and we're all going to get given loads of money, and we're all going to be equally wealthy. But if we think that all having that equal amount of money is gonna stop or change what we've already created, we've really got to think again on that one. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than us. It's bigger than this particular planet. It's a cosmic shift that we're all part of. And so let's take our perspective a bit higher here, and stop screaming at what we don't want and start thinking about what we do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, you know, while we want sort of heaven on earth, and we all wish that that was possible here, the reality is I just don't think that that was ever supposed to be the intention of a third dimensional planet, because if you have that mastering of the inner self, then you wouldn't be in the third dimension, would you? Because you would be a graduated evolutionary, the whole collective would be maturely strutting with jazz hands into the fifth dimension, from what I understand, what is the purpose of the third dimensional living and the fifth dimensional living.
Yeah. I mean, I've had some great, wonderful experiences with the divine, in my life, and the trap sometimes is, oh my God, I've just had this experience where I feel like I am with Source, I'm with God, and then it's like, this is it, I've done it, I'm never coming down again, and then the next moment you're in traffic and you're like, get out of my way. you're just being a human being, and it's like, you've got we got to live in this third dimension. So it's not, and I think a lot of people that are like the people that call themselves light workers or whatever label they want to use, it's like we've talked about before, there's this laziness of, oh well, I know what's going on, I know we're on our way to 5D or whatever, and so I can just sit back and let it all play out. But you are still in a contract to live out a human experience, and so that means participating. So rather than resigning yourself and just letting everyone play out, how can you actually serve this? That's what we're really, to me, what we're here to actually do, is to find out how we can be of service to whatever comes, who knows, like the timelines change all the time, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen. And it's not about committing to any one way. It's about cultivating enough serenity within yourself that no matter what comes up for you, you can face that with serenity, and you can manage it, and you can help others manage it at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think, regardless of whatever situation the 3D life presents itself, we always have an opportunity to have balance and stay neutral as we are observing it. And, we have to take our responsibilities for our inner peace seriously. No one else can provide us that inner peace. And while lots of people want to ignore their inner work, and for whatever reason don't want to be in that neutral inner peace stage, those are all choices, and we've talked about that. Tell me briefly, when you went through a little bit of an illness patch recently, or an accident recently, and you wanted to start smacking your own bottom, thinking that you hadn't done enough work and that you were you're emotionally punishing yourself for something that had happened. Remind me what it was.
Well, we talked previously in the other video about me having candida, and I also had an injury to my right knee and my right arm. So my body kind of seemed to be going through a period of shutting down, with my knee, because I was actually put on my arse for a couple of months and I couldn't really walk around, and I really came to honor that experience, because I saw how much the universe was really saying to me, look, just sit down and stop for a second and just listen. And I did a lot of work, and I guess it's been life-changing for me. But there are times when certainly with the candida and with my arm kind of was going on for a longer period of time, and I'd had all these revelations and all these truth vibrations coming through me and feeling so godly and lovely and all that, but then these things persist, and I'm thinking, well, obviously I'm missing something, obviously I'm not doing my inner work, obviously I'm lagging behind, and obviously I'm a bad human because I've still got imbalances in my body, and that's a ridiculous thing to think. And it's I was laughing at myself the other day. I was like, oh well, yes, you're not enlightened because you've got an injured arm, aren't you? It's we always find ways to beat ourselves up. And you know, maybe my contract is to continue to have this issue for another reason that I don't even know about yet. And it's like, that's all fine really with me. Why do I have to rush to change something rather than just accepting what is? Because the truth is, the longer these things have stuck around with me, the more I've learned. Like all these epiphanies come, and these realizations about like looking at my biology and the right side of my body being representative of the masculine, for example, and how you can go off on understanding more about that aspect of yourself, you know. And then the candida, and we talked in the previous video about the digestive system and the need to take sweets, as you know, and all that stuff. It's like, if you don't judge it and actually just sit with it and ask questions about it, you'll be given so much, and it'll stay around with you as long as it needs to, until you've learned everything that you're going to learn about it. And so it doesn't mean that you are, and I'm talking as though I'm talking to myself, because I had to learn this. Like I said, it doesn't mean that you are any less than a beautiful being of light or of the divine. It's just you're just having an experience, and it's up to you to decide whether or not you're going to judge it or learn from it.
Yeah, it was it's always a good reminder, because when something does happen to our bodies, we think, oh gosh, what's the sign there? What am I missing? What's inner work trying to get my attention? And the other day when I was doing the channeling, and they said that I was putting too much pressure on myself, so they were going to release it. And then after that, I had that's like a sinusy sort of half head cold kind of thing going on. And I was like, oh gosh, what's this? You know, like, ugh, what the kids brought home from, you know, like preschool and stuff. But I know better, but my mindset did go into that whole you know, wondering what I was a victim to. And then I remembered, oh, that's right. They said that they were going to release the pressure I've been placing on myself. So, and as we know, their healing's not magical in terms of, voila, magically removing it. When we have these mindsets, we create these things in our bodies. And when we find the root of it, and when they release it for us, we have to live through that is expressing and coming out. And you know, we're all still very human, and we can be okay with that, and we can accept that, and try not to jump into fear, and try not to judge ourselves as we are working through the inner work.
Yeah, I shared with you previously that I sometimes experience a bit of red skin on my face, and I really strongly feel, and through the work that I've done, that a lot of that is to do with me wanting to live in the future a lot of the time. And I mentioned that at the beginning of the chat today, that it's like when I've got a sense of urgency or hesitate, or like I'm expecting something in the future to occur, and I'm getting my focus is moving forward. It kind of expresses itself in my skin that way, and it makes sense to me, because it's like, you know, the cells in my skin are working so much faster, because they're trying to finance my living in the future. And so it creates obviously a skin issue, and that's the way I've looked at it anyway. But it doesn't mean to say that I'm never going to have a skin issue again, because I've got to the bottom of it, because I'm still going to get caught living in the future all the time, because it's just something that I do. And I guess I have to get humble with myself about that. And it's not the journey here is not about perfection. And that's one thing that I had to learn as well, because a perfectionist is one of my archetypes. You know, I had to learn that we're either all perfect or we're all not. And I believe we all are perfect exactly as we are. So there's nothing to achieve. There's nowhere to get to. There's nothing to finally say, oh, you are this, you know, because we're constantly learning more and more and more about ourselves. So this idea that there is a perfect or a place to get to is something that affects my biology. But it doesn't mean to say that I'm never going to do that. It just means that if I do experience a bit of red skin, I can be like, oh, probably because I'm living in the future too much at the moment. So I can take that and then sit and say, okay, let's bring ourselves back to balance again, you know. And just on that, with humility, I think we spend so much time stressing about the way that we think things should be versus the way that things are. Like we are the sole governors of how the world should look. you know. And that, what that does is it creates, I mean, if I mean, I guess anybody listening to this video, just think for a second how often or how much of the time in your mind is taken up by story that you're making up about what's going to happen or what has happened, and how much of it's just truth. You know, like what a lot of the sufferings that people experience are just come from stories that they make up about the way things are going to be versus what is. You know, and I recognize
they make up a story and then they convince themselves that's going to happen, and then so they don't do it. So, you know, the classic example of sharing a video, oh no, my friends will abuse me and hate me and then think I'm crazy, so I won't do it because I already somehow know how everyone's going to respond. And you know, and the first doubt or reactions, or you know, quite often a negative one, we always find what reasons why we shouldn't do things, because of the, you know, the ego is trying to protect us from any change or anything different that may keep us, you know, make us do something different in some regards. So it's all very interesting.
yeah, we really like patterns, don't we? And I think that's a very interesting truth too, because that's pretty much just what the cosmos is. It's just expressions of patterns, and that filters down into the microcosm of everything, including us. And everything is expressed in a pattern, and it's like you can't break a pattern until you realize that you're in the pattern. So it's just bringing a bit more awareness back into how your beliefs, behaviors, attitudes actually dictate the way your life pans out. And if those patterns aren't serving you, then potentially those patterns have run their course and they need to be changed. But only you can do that by recognizing that you're in a pattern.
But to find out more information about self, these sessions are very helpful with that, because didn't they say to you that you are focusing on one's, like your masculine and feminine side? They didn't say too much, but they're actually wanting you to look at your whole, the whole aspect of it, not that it is located on one side of your body versus the other side. They wanted you to be able to find that unity. Is that what they were trying to say?
Absolutely, because I feel very strongly that one of the ways that I'm helping people, especially my clients, is helping them understand the law of polarity, and how that actually creates so much stress for us, because it creates this notion that things have got to be this way or that way, you know, and it includes the masculine and feminine balance. It includes any kind of pole, you know, polarized thinking. And so I was born with an issue on the left side of my body, which meant that the left side was weaker. And you know, for a long period of time in my life, I called myself disabled, which, you know, looking at it now, I would never use that word, because as I've done work around it, I've realized that I chose that. I came in by choice with this issue on my left side, and as I've aged, the right side of my body started to have a little fun as well. And so the journey just expanded even further to me realizing that I'm being shown that there is an imbalance in the masculine and feminine within me, and that really the most comfortable or peaceful position to be in is where you synthesize every polarity into neutrality. So dark and light become just one thing within the center. And if you can, and like I said earlier, if we take that view of I exist behind polarity, that I don't have to get attached to any views of how masculine I should be, how feminine I should be, how good, all these different things, that I can find stillness and peace behind all that. Because it's like, I think polarity really is one of the things that's causing so much separation right now. And that, well, of course, because that's where it is. It's this way or that way. And where is that energy first experienced? In the gut, you know, that survival part of our body. So we kind of, we're looking at everything as opposite or separate. And so for me, I've really learned that my body, everything that it's expressed, is about getting me to understand that there is no such thing as separation. There is no left and right. And although we experience those things in a 3D reality, the truth is we are at a higher level behind all that as sources, you know. I hope that made sense.
Yes, I mean, it does. It is really important for us to remind ourselves of the bigger things about who we are and why we are. And, just I love having these conversations, that's for sure, because it's, I don't know, just as thought-provoking, and it just makes us be a bit more accountable for our behaviors and responsibilities of reactions to self and others. And I like to keep my life pretty simple too, and just be in that neutral and not sort of buy into any future problems or worries. And I have been kind of judgmental for many reasons, and one of them really was sort of like humanity not being aware of Gaia's state of her body. Like has been in a rapid decline for so long, and while it looks on the surface that it's still plentiful and flourishing, you really don't need to look too hard to realize that there is a lot of toxic things going on for her that's not really serving her. And I want to see if I can try and express this. Just a few days ago, I experienced a death in the family here. Our 12-year-old dog, Bailey. I didn't want to see that it was her time, and there was all those signs, and I still ignored them, and I blocked it out. And it was not until she literally came to me once we picked up, and when I picked her up, I realized, oh my gosh, you're asking to go. And she didn't want to go until we were okay with it. And it was like she was struggling with her responsibility of wanting to support us and be here for us, but also just done. She was a little pug chihuahua, and so she was a chug, and she would eat so much of the cat food. She was a little porker, and we just loved her for that. And we'd only had just lost one of our other dogs only like maybe 2 months ago or something. I can't remember now, because time just feels so strange. But I could feel her just wanting to just be, for us to let her know that it was okay to release. And so I was holding her, and I had to ask. I just asked for archangels to come and collectives to come and support her and let her know it was okay to go. And even though I really didn't want to, and and then my partner held her as well, and then she just let go, which is a blessing, because she was so ready to go, but she wanted to stay for us. And we I haven't actually processed my feelings, because I deal with death all the time. I'm supposed to just not let it affect me, and it does affect me. And I can't keep crying every single day for all of the hardships that humanity is suffering through, and what people have to experience. And I have to find my balance and neutral, and I know so many lessons from all of that, and still have to acknowledge them. And I don't like to feel these hard emotions, and I don't like to experience these hard experiences. I want to have just super easy, balanced life, and most of the time I can do it. But the big lessons for me is, ignoring stuff is fucking fantastic, because it's just, you don't have to ever deal with it until it comes slamming in your face. and you know, and even reluctantly then you don't want to acknowledge it. And you know, part of me emotionally was preparing, since we had lost our other dog Bexy, but it was just, I want to make a joke now about how my dogs are just escaping to go to the fifth dimension earlier, and that is fantastic. But the emotions that we have honoring life contracts and life experiences, you know, it's a huge variety of emotions, and I can understand very deeply now why humanity wants to ignore so much. And I want to be less judgmental, and I want to be able to help humanity the most. And I try to do the best that I can, but also still being really limited and being human. And you know, I want to be able to own the fact that I'm still processing a whole lot. And I think that is real. And I think people have to be okay with all their feelings that they're feeling as well. We're not supposed to mute our feelings, but we're supposed to honor our feelings when they come up and explore it a little bit more. Because some people could just say, oh, well, your dog died, so, you know, that's just you processing death. It actually it goes so much deeper than that. Like, so I can understand so much of why people can ignore the signs, why people want to ignore the signs. You know, like, it's not just a one answer solution here. And it reminds me of a client that I had whose dog died also this year. And the reason why was because he needed to have that loss so then he could connect a little bit more to a loved one who he was sort of dog's best friend. And, you know, like, he had to suffer that loss to then connect better with a loved one for a very important reason, because, you know, humans are so challenging sometimes. So the dog sacrificed its life, so therefore he could be forced into having more of a connection with a human, and to be able to really grow and expand that way. And so there's so many reasons why there are exit points for our dogs, our humans, and we can honor them and their journey, and we can just hope that we have made their lives more supported and more loved, and hope that our own inner work that is still limiting and blocking us hasn't impacted them too much.
Well, bless you for sharing that story, and bless your beautiful dog as well. I think it's good to kind of have those, to share these kind of stories, because sometimes it might seem like a lot of the advice is to diminish your humanness and just respect it's all just, we're all going somewhere, it doesn't really matter. But of course we are here to experience what it's like to have strong connections with others, including animals, and dogs especially. I mean, I feel like their contract a lot of time is just to guide us, or just to hold the wisdom for us and just to support us, because we can get ourselves into a lot of emotional strife, and the animals seem to know the right time to be by our side. And yeah, and if it's okay, I would love to share a little dog story too, because it's actually something that really got me on this path of self-work anyway. A dear friend of mine, a few years ago, had a beautiful dog. He was 18, and he was getting ready to leave, and he was comfortable. He wasn't in any pain or anything like that. He was just old, and I'd only just become friends with this particular person at the time, and she invited me to come over and be in the space while he was getting ready to exit. And I'd never seen anyone pass on before. I'd never been around that kind of thing at all. And I went around this particular Saturday, and he was just in his bed. He wasn't moving much, but he was alive. He was okay. And he didn't he didn't actually go the Saturday night. And so the Sunday I went home, quickly got changed, and I came back. And just as I arrived back, he started to go through his process, and he was like laying down but galloping as though he was running towards something. And then just as he was about to leave, he let out 3 cries that sounded just like a little baby crying. And the crazy thing was that the night before, I'd fallen asleep for about 50 minutes on the couch, and I had this dream that he died, and he turned into a human baby boy. And I feel that I witnessed him entering his new body as a human. And then obviously as he was crying as this at the end of his life, like that, like a little baby boy. I'd never heard a dog make a noise like that. It really sounded like a baby boy crying. I was so moved. And in that moment, I was like, everything I thought I knew about the way the world works was completely flipped on its head, because I saw this creature to go on its process into entering another vehicle, and I was just blown away, and it changed my life. So, you know, what can I say? It's just one of those experiences where, you know, something just comes and it just completely flips your life on its head, and I've not been the same since. So I really honor animals and their wisdom, their compassion, their love, and I think they know a lot more about what's going on than we do.
They definitely teach us so much. And, you know, me getting to observe her leaving her body, you can really sense that. You know, she still was, you know, she still was our beautiful girl.
Yeah.
But there is that shift, and it was beautiful. It was, you know, she was in the arms of someone she adored. It's the best way to go, really. Surrounded with loved ones. But
Yeah.
observing the experience of her just slipping away, there was that peace. There was this, you know, we're supposed to be terrified of death and it be all scary. And I mean, Bailey did not make any sound at all. She just literally just slipped away, and just it was just so beautiful and still so scary at the same time, in terms of you don't want it to happen. And yeah, there's so many emotions that they're on it, you know. Like I remember, you know, when I'm giving birth to the twins, you know, like when I could see my mummy friends and we would relish on like all the details of the birth and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, like you're so the extremes of the birth and death experience. It's really the same as in so many ways. And yet one is this horrible thing that we must never talk about and share, because we're just, you know, we're horrific, horrible people to share something so horrible. But yet it's a cycle where we must respect all cycles. Okay, I do need to go and pick up my preschoolers. So sorry about the emotions. I am certainly not sharing the story about our dogs for sympathy, but more like I'm still processing the feelings of the experiences of death. And I don't want people to think that I am not experiencing my own journey with emotions with the subjects of their sessions. It still very much impacts me, and I still want people to know that I'm still trying to be the best of service, to be able to find the information that is being given in these sessions with the most due diligence and respect, but also still processing it myself and got other stuff going on as well. So thank you everyone for listening, and I just want love to be so fucking contagious. We all break out in love rashes.
Yeah. I think it's really beautiful that you shared that, because you know, it's not like we're sitting up here saying be like us or do this way and don't do it this way. And, you know, like we're still processing our human shit all the time. And, you know, just